Alright, I wanted to point out this chia here. Native Americans used to use the seeds of chia for food and also to make certain beverages and poultices, because the seeds get sticky and mucilaginous. I guess that's how you say that word. And so I discovered that by putting, I don't know what you call it, the heads, there you go, the heads of the chia in a bag, after the chia is kind of dried out, the seeds just fall right out into the bag, and they collect inside the bag. So right here on this very sunny bank, actually you can see they're kind of prickly when they dry out. When they're not dry, they're not prickly, but once they dry out, they're sort of like grabbing Canadian thistle. They're very similar to the thistle once they've dried out. And just clip them off, put them in the bag, the seeds fall out. So, actually shake it up, I guess. Ooh, that works. I can see the seeds just flying off of there. And now you can see how they're collecting at the bottom of the bag. Okay. A nice little collection. Remember that seeds are one of the primary sources of protein outside of meat and animal products. Seeds, nuts, and legumes. Seeds? Okay, I'm going to try the chia seeds, see if I like them. Not really much flavor. Definitely would be something sort of like when you put sesame on a bun or something. It could be something like that you would add into your bread or whatever, just really for the protein. It doesn't have a bad taste, doesn't have a good taste. It almost has no flavor, but you know that when you're out here and you're not hunting and stuff, that you need that. So one reason I wish people never knew about cool places like this is because this is actually real Indian rock art. You can just see it kind of, there you go, there's an animal, a couple animals. You can see it mixed in with all the graffiti. People, when they see the Indian rock art, don't seem to know that it's real, or they don't care. Man, I've pointed out real rock art to a lot of people who are like, how do you know that's actually Indian rock art? How do you know somebody didn't just, you know, do graffiti? So that's the ignorance we're dealing with. So they just scrawl their initials and just scratch the rocks all up, and now you can't, it just ruins the experience of standing here knowing that some native people lived here and used this river and, you know, camped here and maybe had houses here. So this was a spot where they came to get water and to bathe and whatever. Very simple structure. It's really just to block out the sun in the morning so that when the sun gets up, that doesn't mean you have to. So obviously the river is flowing west from the east at this point, and many of you will know exactly where I am if I show you this. So yeah, this is me going all out modern, you know, camping with all the high-tech modern gear. I don't like tents. You can't see out the tent, you know? You can't see the stars. You don't have the air flowing through when you're in a tent. I use a lot of bow knots in my construction, so it comes down very easily when I want it to, but it holds together when I don't want it to come down. So. And then I can reuse a lot more of the string too when I do that. I see breakfast. It's interesting how if I pour a little water into this, immediately the water turns yellow. So those chia seeds I picked yesterday are gonna go in with the berries. Now the berries are wet, so the chia seeds I expect will get kind of slimy a little bit. That's part of my breakfast. It's gonna be weird. I wanted to point out there is actually a reason for putting the chia seeds in with these wolfberry type berries. It's because there's so much tannic acid in the skins, the berries will give you some severe dry mouth. But anything with a lot of mucilage in it, like chia seeds or the young, the fresh parts growing on the cactuses, will actually counteract that, because it kind of has a slimy taste that coats your mouth, whereas the tannins, remove any of that coating from your mouth, which is what gives you dry mouth. So they counteract one another. So this side of this hill really just a big old berry patch. Again, I hesitate to mention, to call it a wolfberry or a thorn bush, because they're all part of the same family. They're all very similar, and there's so many species. It's the same bush. It's just, the English name will usually be called a wolfberry or a thorn bush, depending on what. Like this is a Johnson thorn bush, maybe. I don't know that for sure, but it looks like one. And this yellow orange color is coming off the berries, or out of them, so that's what's getting into the water. This is really bathtub warm. So if you were really spoiled with having that warm bath every day, you could continue being spoiled even if you were living out in the wilderness, if you just live not too far from a hot spring. And the cattails are one of the best sources for food and weaving material and all kinds of stuff that there is. So to eat it as a raw vegetable, you want to cut it off as close to the ground as you can. I want you to see the core right there, that center core is the part that you want to eat, that's just very, very easy to eat, like celery. Right here. That is just as good as any commercial vegetable. Of course, you can boil it, make it even taste better. There's so much of it. How are you going to go hungry? This kind of place really inspires me. It's totally hidden, completely surrounded by building materials, completely surrounded on all sides by water. So you have fish, you have cattails, you just got all kinds of food everywhere. And the only thing is that if it starts raining hard, you don't want to be here because this is a flash flood zone. You can generally see how high the last flash flood was. This is about up past my shoulder, actually, because what happens is all the sticks and branches and leaves and everything just get piled up against the trees. This flash flood would have been probably over my head, or close to it, and the water would have been going so fast, if somebody was stuck here, he would have just drowned. He wouldn't have had a chance to get out. So if you're going to live in a place like this, you also have to have a high ground. Let's call it a cottage. It's up in the rocks in the higher ground above the elevation of the flash flood, so that, you know, if it starts raining even upstream, really, not just here, but you can see there's thunder clouds upstream, there's you know, rain upriver, then you just get out of the way. Another option would be to build your house up in the trees well above the water line, the high water line, but it's a good idea, but it's no guarantee, because sometimes the floods are so strong they'll just rip the trees down. Obviously these trees have been standing here for a while. So the stuff in these trees is well over my head. Another consideration if you were living in a treehouse to stay clear of flash floods is you gotta get out of your treehouse at some point. When a flash flood comes through, the water will often stay for quite a while. You know, you'll have a river right here where we are. And so if you're going to do that, you also have to have an escape route in the trees to a place that's well above that flash flood line. Sasquatch dung. So isn't this a strange place for the Sasquatch to come and take a dump right there, like repeatedly over and over? Like this is the regular dump spot. It looks like human stuff, but it's completely natural. It's not as well digested as human. And you have to ask yourself, is that really a javelina? I can't even imagine a javelina climbing through all this stuff. How would it do it? That thing has to have really good balance. I am right now standing on a tree over the river. That's the only way to get to this place. Right here, the Sasquatch's toilet. I call this mystery animal Sasquatch because I don't know what else. It's human dung-ish, but totally feral. It's like a feral human. There you go. The dung is right up on there. See, this tree is surrounded by water. That's really hard to get to. You have to basically do what I just did and climb on this tree. And the thing is like standing on those two trees basically, squatting, taking a dump right there. I've actually learned quite a bit from these so-called Sasquatches by looking at their dung and seeing what they're eating, because they're completely vegan, completely feral, and they don't digest their food as well as humans. So you can see the seed, you can see, you know, parts of whatever berries they've been eating or whatever. So they're actually, whatever they are, I don't know what they are, they're pretty educational anyway. And every now and then I run across something like this. These are beautiful, ready to be eaten. See the dark green pads. Look at that. Look at all that. That's a lot of food there. Really good. Perfect. It's just in season. There's the new growth, the dark green ones on the top. Now it'll fill you up, along with all the other foods, because you don't want to eat too much of one kind of anything. You want to get as much variety as you can, otherwise even good food can be rejected by your body, kind of, you know, almost as if it's poison. You end up with some kind of health problems for eating too much of something good, unfortunately. So variety, that's what it's all about, learning as much as you can about as many things as you can, and having a big variety on your plate. It's kind of like a cotton type of down that comes from several different things. Cottonwood trees for one, but they're not the only thing. And if you pick it up, you realize you really can use it actually for some kind of, you know, stuffing material or padding, or like if you were making a blanket or a coat and you needed some sort of insulation. This sort of thing could be useful if you spent some time gathering it. Here's a good pile. This is what I'm talking about right here. Now, just kind of roll it in your hand, pack it down. More Conagra. It may be a different species, but it's still the same thing as the desert rhubarb or dock plant. Taste the leaf. It has a little bit of that rhubarb kind of taste. It's very mild. So, you know, you could just cut the leaves off that plant, throw them into the same pot you're boiling the prickly pear in. As I'm saying, variety. Dice up some of those cores of the cattails, throw that in the same pot. The mucilage from the prickly pear, of course, is good for handling type 2 diabetes, and I believe it helps put your blood sugars under control, and it's free. Like if you just walked away from everything and decided you want to live out here, you don't have to ever go back. You don't need the grocery stores. You don't need to pack canned food. I'm going to say that about your bug out bag. People who are survival preppers, if you know, and you need to have the experience, you need to actually come out and experiment with these things and eat them. You actually have to do it just to get your stomach used to it, because your stomach is used to these very sweet, sugary, by sweet and sugary, I'm talking about the vegetables. You know, the things that we as humans over time have turned into our agricultural foods that we plant that don't naturally belong in the environment we're in. You know, we're used to these very sweet tasting foods. When you eat some of this out here, you almost at first want to reject it because it's strange. It's just like I said about the thorn bush. You know, that's maybe Fremont thorn bush or Anderson. It's like at first you taste it and it's weird and you're not sure that you want to eat it, but then you start eating it by the handful, and next thing you know, you just got to keep going. Over the long term, these wilderness foods are like that. The next thing you know, you'll be craving these weird teas. Some of my favorite teas actually are cottonwood bark and ragweed root, and also goldenrod tea is really good. And you've had these things, the next thing you know, you're going to be craving them. You know, when your body is craving some sort of food or drink, it actually needs the nutrition that's in that. So the reality is, though, that We don't need anything that the modern world offers in the store. We want those things because they make our lives convenient. We want to eat those foods because not only do we not have to go out and gather them, but also we're used to the really sweet, sugary taste. I've been macking on this mix of chia seeds and thorn bush since this morning. It's about 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock this morning. It's around noon, judging by where the sun is. And I really haven't gotten hungry yet. Besides these, I've eaten a couple of those cattail cores. Maybe you take the chia seeds and the brassica seeds, put them all together into that nutrition bar. Possible way to end a hike. This is a great camping spot, except for the fish were just playing and flopping around and jumping all night long, and it made it hard to sleep. You know, it's like the fish disco dance or something. Wee, you know, flop, flop, woo. But yeah, the fish dance is here. This is the place for that in the middle of the night if you want to wish that you brought a rod and reel when you didn't.